It's about providing a medium for a worker to train on a skill at their own pace, but also way faster than they could otherwise. So, from our perspective, we are primarily a software company. We use partners for hardware. So, we're talking like a professional headset, but imagine like your Meta Quest or your gaming headsets. So, we use equivalent hardware or that hardware too for some organizations that is built in a way that you essentially will turn it on, put it on your head, and it's curated.
Hey guys, and welcome to the Grow IT podcast. One of your hosts here, Trey King. And today we are very excited to have our guest, Mr. Scott MacAdams. And he's from Humulo VR Training. And we'll be diving today a bit into his story and what it is that his company does and some engaging insights into the technology industry. Now, I've been waiting for this one, so please make sure you stick around as well. But without further ado, Scott, welcome to the Grow IT podcast.
Thanks, Trig. Yeah, I'm really happy to be here. I'm excited to kind of get into a few things here and educate you on the VR training environment.
Yeah, man, that sounds looking forward to it, definitely. If you don't mind, Scott, if we can maybe kick things off, if you would introduce yourself and then just tell a quick snippet of your story.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So, Scott MacAdams, I'm the founder, CEO of Humulo VR Training. We offer advanced virtual simulation training to rapidly upskill workers. So,
Oh wow,
industrial workers, but any kind of worker, really, any kind of hands-on job.
that's
Brief
excellent.
background on me, though, actually, Trig. So, I'm originally from Davidsonville, Maryland,
Yeah,
United States. I graduated from the U.S. Naval Academy in 2010. I served in the Navy for approximately 7 years following that. I graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Economics. Went on to do nuclear power training in Charleston, South Carolina. Served
oh
on
wow,
the USS Michigan. It's a nuclear sub out of Seattle, Washington. Um, I was the Pacific Fleet Junior Officer of the Year in 2014. Certified as a professional nuclear engineer at that time, and finished up my naval service as a program manager at the Naval Academy, making, let's say, unique digital training experiences. And then I also completed a master's at that time in engineering management from Duke University. So then
jeez.
after that is when I founded Humulo. But as far as my kind of lead up there, that's sort of the background.
Yeah, that's quite a colorful background. You've been around, my word. The tell me tell me, Scott. But what was it? That initially got you into this specific business center. I mean, it's kind of niche, right? And what sparked that interest? Why is it that you're so passionate about this?
Yeah. Okay. So, well, in the Navy, when I was on a sub, I did a lot of training myself as a trainee, as a trainer. I designed training, mostly, here's the tests and the content and how you deliver training on different topics, usually very important work. That being said, it can be super boring. It doesn't almost matter what the content is. Training mediums are boring, but think about PowerPoints, think about, testing and in the military, you're talking about average age, 25. So, nuclear submarine, if a 23-year-old nuclear mechanic doesn't reassemble a valve or, let's say, a pipe back together and exactly to the specification, or follow their training in that way, it can be catastrophic for the lives of the 130 people or so on board. So it was my job to make sure they're well trained, did their jobs correctly. So you kind of flash forward to Humulo, let's say 2019 timeframe.
Yeah,
VR training wasn't new to me. I was being in the military. There's VR simulators. There has been for decades. Pilots and submarine work was no different. We had huge simulators and things like that. So I knew how powerful it was, how it worked. The problem was accessibility. Military training simulators are not very accessible. They're huge. They require technicians to run them. And really, they don't train people. They just simulate the equipment, simulate the environment. So they're
Yeah.
required to have subject matter experts to actually train participants in the simulators. So bad habits can be learned in those simulators just as easily as good ones, depending on who's training you and who's running it. So that's
Mm.
really background wise, ultimately the root of where we got going in this direction from a company perspective was rooted in that. Like, why can't the VR simulator be mobile, completely accessible to learn at your own pace, but
Mm.
also then guard against learning those bad habits during training? So,
Tell me, I mean, you've got a lot of experience. What would you say is the like current market trends, like in your space, right? In your market, what are the trends that you are currently being, picking up? What way are the winds blowing these days? What you've been, noticing.
yeah. So, I mean, I guess there's a couple ways you can look at that question. The technical side, um, and then from the training side. So from a training perspective, I'll start there. What's the reason to have the technology in the first place? What's the outcome you want?
Yep.
You want faster training, work turnover is higher than ever in industrial environments. Um, Finding new workers, bringing them in, training them, efficiency, competing with automation. It's more and more competitive every day. So the why and the need is trending up, if you will. Like the requirement is getting larger from an industrial perspective. Um, so how do you solve that? And virtual training is becoming fast more and more the standard of how you solve that. Trainees can train in VR approximately 4 times faster than they can with traditional methods. What does that mean? So take our fire safety training, for example, we have off the shelf. Almost every industrial worker in the world will do some kind of fire safety training annually. A lot of
Yeah.
localities require it. Usually takes a minimum of 1 to 2 hours, may or may not include a hands-on element. In virtual reality and our training, in 10 minutes, a worker can complete their annual equivalent requirement and include that hands-on element and require
Wow.
no supervision. So the ROI from a time factor
Yeah.
alone,
Productivity.
significant, let alone, yeah, the efficacy of whether that worker is better prepared to handle a emergency situation than they would watching a PowerPoint or sitting in a classroom.
Definitely.
Um, but getting back to your question real quick, you said where are the winds blowing? So I
Yeah.
want to answer that. So the winds are blowing. That need is getting larger as far as
Mm.
needing solutions to train workers quickly, more effectively. From a technical perspective, it's developing still. We have products that work, but every time we get an advancement in technology from virtual perspective or software side, adoption is increased significantly. There's always a jump. It's
Yeah.
lighter,
Yeah.
it's more comfortable. People are accepting it more, and they're also using it more and more in their everyday environment, everyday lives. So when we bring it in for a training, as a training device to a company, it's more and more expected, if you will.
Tell me, I think we should maybe dive a bit deeper into what it is specifically on this VR training. A bit maybe if you don't mind to elaborate on how this works. If we can just
Yeah.
understand the company and what it does a bit better.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of going back to the whole concept that I mentioned earlier, it's about providing a medium for a worker to train on a skill at their own pace, but also way faster than they could otherwise. So
Yeah.
from our perspective, we are primarily a software company. We use partners for hardware. So we're talking like a professional headset, but imagine like your Meta Quest or your gaming headsets.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so we use equivalent hardware, or that hardware too, for some organizations that um, is built in a way that you essentially will turn it on, put it on your head, and it's curated. So your name's
Yeah.
there. We've got
Nice.
cloud infrastructure to match up for learning management. So when you complete lessons, it syncs up. Our entire system works offline, includes casting. So what is casting? Instructors or other people can see what you're doing up on a TV screen. So we put up to 8 different headsets on a single TV screen at the same time. Again, no Wi-Fi required, so it's incredibly reliable, smooth, and most importantly, easy. And
Yep. Yeah.
you don't have to worry about the Wi-Fi passwords. You don't have to worry about glitches or things like that. Or, I'm going to
Yeah. Yeah.
pick up this device and I don't understand the controllers. The vast majority of our training is built so grabbing is like the only interaction with the environment. Haptics, tool tips, crawl, walk, run mentality. It's all in the way you design the training. So the trainee gets into the training, and they're off. Non-technical 60-year-old factory worker is able to complete, like the fire safety training in 10, 15 minutes. Um, so it's a VR headset though. I mean, essentially everything you can do seated from an accessibility
Yeah.
perspective. You can also get up and walk around. We've got multi-person training, so up to 10 people, 12 people in some, anywhere in the world can talk to each other, look each other in the eye, so to speak, and go through a training experience.
I've got two questions for you on that. The first one is I was actually involved in that was actually back when I was in South Africa. The with training that was mostly with VR training as well that they did with specifically in the construction industry. And
Hmm.
I know they had some challenges that side when it came to from a legal standpoint, as opposed to in-person training or the assessor coming or something like that. How do you guys currently fit in with that?
So you mean like like the locality has a requirement for
Requirements. Yeah,
training? They're saying
exactly.
this isn't enough hours, or
Yeah.
Uh, so it is up to the organization to certify training. Nothing's ever going to necessarily change that. So it is the organization though can decide this is equivalent, and that's where the records come in. So when the auditor, at the end of the day, when the auditor shows up,
Yeah.
you need to be able to show the timestamp, the grade, and the detailed workout of what that individual did, and then you
Gotcha.
can show them the content and the content write-up. So all feedback we've ever gotten when there's been audits from our clients has been glowing. Auditors love it. It's usually over and above what anyone else is doing,
Yeah.
and the best part for the company is it takes a fraction of the time.
Tell me, and then my second question is do you guys like get sometimes requests to do, let's say, like in-house training, specific training,
Yeah,
that,
bespoke, like custom training.
yeah, yeah,
Oh, 100%. We do that. So we've got about, a
great,
growing library of different trainings where, fire, lotto, pre-trip inspections for 18-wheelers, ergonomics, forklifts, all different kinds of forklifts. But so that's off the shelf, and a lot of clients just utilize that. But for the
mm,
medium to large clients, we will do customized training. We focus typically on, we might do a digital twin, we might scan their factory. So we have maybe the second largest aluminum producer in the world, scan one of their factories, and they've got an entire emergency shutdown training that is impractical to train anyone on. So in, 5 minutes, that's a fairly
yeah.
concise training. They bring every new worker that comes to the factory, gets to go through that, and they can go through it as much as they want too throughout the year. So when that does happen and the seconds matter the most, they're actually ready
Yeah.
to go. They've completely in their own factory walked through every step and they don't have to think about it.
Jeez, this is so profound. This is excellent. Tell me in your opinion, if we can maybe just focus a bit on, from a 30,000 foot overview on building business and thus forth. In your opinion, what would you say? What type of mindset you think is needed to be a successful founder of a business?
Yeah, interesting question. type of mindset. So, I mean, I honestly think at the end of the day, yeah, you can if you get lucky early and quickly, you may get out of this, but I think that you really are doing yourself a disservice if you don't go into starting a business with the kind of burn the ships
Yeah,
mentality. You have to be ready to make significant sacrifices, and hopefully you don't end up actually making some of them. But without that level of motivation, I do believe that you are unlikely to be successful in business. It's whether it comes down to personal relationships, making tough decisions. Um, People's livelihood depends on your choices.
yeah,
And when you aren't prepared to make hard choices and sacrifice, when the business needs it, kind of putting the business above everything else, including
mm,
your family sometimes. And if your family's not on board with that, I mean, everything needs to align there if to be successful
yeah.
as a startup owner, I think.
Those
So, I
are
mean,
those
I'm
are
really fortunate though. Family is the kind of that kicker thing. I've been married for 13 years. My wife's amazing. We went through I went on, 5 deployments on a submarine, married to my wife, and we've got 4 kids, and so there's a lot going on. But
yeah,
yeah, I mean, you have to have those conversations like, listen, guys, the next couple weeks are going to be rough, or this is what we're going to have to cut from our budget because we got to do this or that. When you're getting started and you need capital, or sometimes the capital, most times the capital is your time, number one. So,
mm,
if you're going to have a family life of any kind, you better make sure you figure out creative ways to keep them involved. And it's not that dissimilar to your employees. Your employees need to be prideful and invested in the business. So for their satisfaction, um, but that's the same as your kids or your family. They should be prideful and invested in the business as well, or else you're going to have a tough time. And I
yeah.
learned a lot of that in the Navy too. Luckily, that was like a situation where I think I had a good basis for that kind of level of, be creative about how you do this and then be understanding that, you know, what it's going to take ahead of time and try and prepare people for that.
Well, those are some good pointers. A couple of golden nuggets we got there. Thank you for that. Tell me, Scott, where can they get hold of you guys?
Primarily online at the website, www.humulo.com. Go there, contact, you can see videos, or on YouTube, LinkedIn, email, call, etc. Pretty easy. If you Google VR training, you'll probably see us pop up at the top. So
Yeah, after this session, I can tell you I'm gonna go back to that website again because I found this just so much more interesting on a new level after our conversation. Thank you, Scott, for coming on. I can fully understand why you guys are so successful the way you are, and I truly wish you guys all the best going forward. What a great concept! What a great initiative! All the best to you guys.
thanks, Trey. It's a pleasure.
Take care. Bye now.